Welcome in, by the way. Who's inconsiderate enough to put friggin' guns on your bed if they're not your guns? Like, that's just inconsiderate. Yeah, I'd be a little cranky too. Not because there's guns, but because the guns are on my bed. Oh, great. I don't understand people and their drama. Oh, well, then they're forgiven. Or at least they would be in my book. I mean, burgers and a milkshake, that can go a long way. That can go a long way for my forgiveness. I'm just saying, sometimes, I'm pretty cheap. But yeah, I mean, now when I say drama, I mean like people that are drumming up stuff that is useless just to bother other people. Like you're at work. You don't have to like the people, you just have to do a job together. Just exist together. You don't have to create all this fuss. Oh, yeah, that would be bad. See, and I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize is just how big the LGBT community is. And I think they forget that the average LGBT has more disposable income than the average person. I'm not saying they make more money, but they have fewer bills. And I mean, that's just, or at least that was an old statistic I remember, is that they have a higher discretionary budget. Because, well, quite frankly, when you don't go out and, to do a lot of the things that hetero people do, that saves you a lot of money because, well, let's be honest, heteronormative people are more highly monetized than the LGBTQ community. I mean, yes, you have all the pride flags and everything, all the performative stuff that companies do. But, I mean, there's a lot more monetization. Well, that is one of the things, is since you're not out there making babies. Although you guys do happen to foster and adopt a lot too, which is admirable. But more what I mean is that you're focusing more on things that actually matter to you, but you also have to avoid certain places because there's bigots out there. And a lot of those places that the bigots are heavily monetized. I mean, church. How much money are you supposed to give to your church? 10% of your take? Which, don't get me started on organized religion and what they do. Let alone how many different things. I mean, it's ridiculous. And, I mean, that's why they monetized pets so heavily now. I mean, all of these boutique things that, you do for pets, because a lot of LGBT have pets. Oh, yeah. Correct, Green Jeans. Especially since, funnily enough, me and my brother just had a nice conversation about tithe and how it's actually not in the Bible, not in the way that the churches want you to believe. But, and funnily enough, he was the one that brought it up, not me. He's the more religious one. More religious, yeah. By a lot. Because, well, I'm not very religious. I have my faith, but I'm not a religious person. I don't believe in organized religion. Oh, yeah. See, and there you go. See, smear campaigns. Gotta love them. But you wouldn't want to do that to your own work. I just do it to that one person and basically get her in trouble. Not necessarily fired, I mean, it depends on what's really being done. But if they're actually just trying to drum up drama just to get somebody fired, yeah. They need to learn the consequences of their actions. They need to learn, maybe demoted, maybe full on firing. Because I mean, I don't have to like a person to work with them. That's the thing is that I think a lot of people just forget. You don't even have to get along at work. You just have to do your stinking job. That's it. Now, if somebody's not doing their job, regardless of their alphabet behind them, whether that's an H or an LGBTQ, there should be problems. Take care of the job. If they're not doing their job, take care of them. Either retrain, which I think is more retraining somebody, putting them back through training, I think is one of the most insidious things you can do to somebody. Like, I mean, just the most demoralizing thing, because you are literally telling them you're not smart enough to work, so we have to train you again. Like, no, you need more training. I mean, to me, that is one of the most insulting things. Oh, yeah. See, and that's why I love unions. You have a representative. I'm a firm believer in unions, even bad unions, because a bad union has more of a reason to try and get you work than a company has to keep you, because they'll just bump you and grab somebody else. Pure and simple. Now, is there bad unions out there that can't do anything? SAG-AFTRA? Yeah. Yeah, they overreach. Yeah. There's a lot of unions that do overreach. I mean, Teamsters is one of them. The Teamsters union actually cost the American people more money every year than I think people really want to know. Because the Teamsters destroyed railroad. And because railroad was the best logistically for getting things done, I mean, we pulled up the tracks. I mean, how many places got their tracks pulled up? I mean, we used to be webbed with train tracks. That was the way you got things done. Now we have semi trucks that we don't have enough people to populate to drive. Yet a train can handle 100, 1,000, CDL truck drivers, loads. Yeah. Teamsters destroyed them. I mean, that was literally one of the things Hoffa did, was Teamsters unionized truck drivers. Although now it's, funnily enough, Teamsters don't actually unionize truck drivers. Most truck drivers are independent. They aren't even part of a union. Like, the whole thing that the Teamsters did has now been laid to waste. And so truck drivers are probably some of the most screwed over company workers that I've ever known. My dad was a long haul truck driver. Right. Well, okay. See, if you do trains properly, one, we could take out probably a good 40 to 50% of pollution by just doing trains. Trains would actually be probably one of the most logistically smart things we could convert our highways to. Take up 2 lanes, one on each side of a highway, and offer light freight and passenger train. Simple as that. Light freight and passenger train. All of your Amazon boxes qualify as light freight. Amazon would be making money hand over fist because they'd stop having to pay individual drivers for long haul trips, and you pay one company for loading and unloading. You're saving yourself a butt ton of money. Oh, nuclear trains would be super easy. You just wouldn't realize it. See, you have a nuclear plant and you have an electric train. You could put the nuclear plant in the middle of nowhere And as long as you maintain your railroads like they used to, you just have that power line running underneath the rail. You're powering all your trains, and you could power a lot of trains off of just one modern nuclear reactor, and it wouldn't have to even be in a population center. You know, that's the thing most people, I don't think, really understand. Yes, a soul train. The fact that you can run, I mean, you could run that underground in a utility right by the train tracks. You don't have to have nuclear powered trains, you know, in case there is a derailing. Of course, most of the derailings, it's found that they were skimping on the safety devices because they don't have the money to keep going. You know, if we reinvest in rail, we could make a lot more money and we could save a lot more people time. I mean, light rail was one of the best things about Portland before they screwed everything up. I loved the light rail there. It was called Max. I had a park and ride I used to go to that was right by a police station. My car never got broken into. It was like $2 to ride all day, 24-hour pass, all zone. So I could hop the train, I could hop onto a bus. You know, and I'm sure even now, you know, $5-10 or just buy a monthly pass. Boom. You know, and I'd even pay more in, you know, taxes if they wanted to just make the train free. And you just pay out of it in taxes. You know, I mean, it's just one of those things that I think a lot of people don't understand, is that we could make mass transit usable. But you know how many industries that you would ruin doing that? Car industry, insurance industry, well, specifically car insurance industry, which is probably where a lot of these insurance companies make the bulk of their money because it's legalized extortion. Because you legally have to have insurance to drive. I mean, that's my personal feelings. You know, probably a hot take, but whatever. You know, I think if you're going to require something, like even at a job, if you require a uniform, you better pay for it. And sure, that means that, you know, my wage or whatnot, you know, certain things I will be paying for, but it's more democratized that way. You know, it's more easy for a person who, say, a homeless person that's required a uniform. Well, if the company provides a uniform, they have a clean set of clothes to come to work in. You know, and I mean, imagine how much easier it might be if you actually had lockers for people and maybe a shower room at a job, even if it's a grocery store, and you store those uniforms there. I mean, really, it's not that hard to think about. But my profit, so what? Companies are producing more profits than they ever have in history. And they keep telling us they can't afford to keep going. Well, what is it? Are you making better profits or are you losing money? We'll take this EA games thing. I mean, EA has had the longest standing franchises, I think, of any video games. Their sports franchises, were started all the way back in the 90s? And they produce one basically every year? And that's all been bought up by EA? And I mean, one of the most garbage companies. I don't know how they stay in business. EA has basically destroyed everything. And oh, wait, they're not going to stay in business if they don't sell to the Saudis, which, guess what? That's a great idea. Well, yeah, management trying to protect their bonuses. The problem is that those bonuses are ridiculous. You're paying management to cost you money. The corporation's losing money because managers are getting their bonuses because they're fluffing the numbers. Guaranteed. That's why these companies are losing money, because they don't know who the real sink of money is. They're not holding management accountable for their employees not doing their job. because half the time management don't know what their employees are supposed to do. At least in my experience, that's what I've faced. Oh, you just need to do your job. Okay, well, tell me what my job is, boss. Oh, you do this, this, and this. That is not my job description. It's amazing how many of my managers did not know what I was hired for. Well, don't forget, not just burning out, turning away customers, ruining product because they're tired, because they're not, they don't have enough people to work with. They're literally burning themselves up and out because they can't be bothered to give people time off. I mean, how is it that every other country in the world has figured this out? Okay, maybe not every other, but so many countries in the world have figured out how to actually have employment contracts for every job. Yet in America, we can't figure out how to get, people to work, punish companies for actually hiring people illegally. And I'm not even talking about illegal immigrants at this point. I'm talking people with inadequate certification for the job they're supposed to be doing. People who skirt all the rules and get the job anyway, basically lie on their application because they can't be bothered to do the proper background checks. These companies aren't paying for these mistakes. And that's where's our labor board? Where is our Department of Labor doing their proper job? I mean, people want to talk about how bad unions are, but unions actually have to have a certain level of certification for their employees. That's under contract. They have to have these employees trained depending on their level. There is an expectation with union. And there's no pay gap. The pay gap is your hours worked. Men and women don't get paid differently. Minorities don't get paid differently. Or if they are getting paid differently, it's literally against the rules, even for the union. Not just illegal, but it's against the union rules, at least in every union I've ever worked for. Which, 3, 4? Same with my wife, the union she works for. They're breaking rules if they do that. If they do any kind of discrimination, because the union has rules against that. And you have business reps, you have union reps that you can go to, just like Ninetails did, and speak out your grievances. And that's the thing that I think every American corporation is absolutely terrified of. Being held to task for failing to do their job. They put it all on you. But the fact is we've been putting it all on the American people for companies' failings for the better part of a century, I think. I don't have any real proof of that, but they keep telling you, oh, you need to recycle. You need to do these things to protect the environment. Bruh, even if every American person recycles 100% of their plastic, that does not offset, if I remember right, it doesn't offset the amount of plastic that goes through McDonald's. Like, we literally don't offset anything. The American people can do every little bit they can do to protect the environment for everything that they're supposed to do. And it literally does nothing compared to what companies do. We're not saving the planet by recycling everything. Because half the time recycling is a scam anyway. It all goes to the same landfill. They just don't tell you that. Which is what I found absolutely hilarious about living around Seattle. You could get fined if you had improperly sorted your recyclables. But somebody actually did a deep dive into how the waste management system works. And 90% of what you sorted out for recycling went into the same landfill as what you did with your garbage. Yeah. Which, just really think about that. That you can be in trouble, but they don't get in any trouble for improperly recycling. Which is funny because it sounds like I'm a wasteful mofo. My trash gets picked up every week. I might have 2 bags in it every 2 weeks. Like, I don't even put out my trash. Except for every other week. Because I just don't fill it. I don't make that much trash. So I don't know. There's just so much going on that they try to blame on all of us. Yeah, sure, there are certain things we can do. But they want us to keep, and by they, I mean corporations, politicians, all of these people up because they want to protect themselves from us realizing that we have more power. Take a look at these ICE protests. I hate to tell these protesters, they are giving them everything they want. Everything is newsworthy. What they're doing is making it look like they're in the wrong. But that's okay because the other side, ICE agents and all of this are making it look like they're in the wrong. Like, both sides of this are just absolutely dumb. I want to tell those protesters, quit screaming and yelling, quit standing in front, just silently stare at them. You want to know what is one of the most disconcerting things you can ever do, especially to law enforcement or security guards? Silently stare at them as they do their job. Make them feel observed. Don't say anything. They try to rile you up. Don't say anything. In fact, anybody on your lines, on the protester side, tries to speak up or do anything, remind them. Silently stare. Because they can't do anything against that. Don't block their paths. Don't do anything like that. Just silently stare at them. It might feel like you're doing no good, but psychologically, you are destroying them because nobody likes being silently stared at. It is probably one of the most disconcerting things in the world, especially for long periods of time. Think about it. It's literally the subject of horror movies. And it's probably one of the most effective. In fact, I think it was one of the most effective protest methods during the civil rights in the 60s, is where they just, do sit-ins and silently sit there. That's what these people really need to start, going back to the old playbooks. Yeah, they might turn hoses on you. It's just water. But they're going to be looking, the media optics is going to make that look so much worse. If you're not throwing rocks, bottles, screaming and yelling, you don't look like a mob. If you look silent and organized, they're going to have to change up what they're doing because now you're creating a mirror. You're showing them what real silent protesting is. Hold your sign. Let them know why you're there. Thank you, T-Row. And I don't know. It's just one of those things that I wish people would understand that screaming and yelling, most people can close their ears to. They're used to that. But you have a body cam on, hell, grab your dash cam. Put it on your hat. Put it on your shoulder. If you have, something like that, have your phone out. But just do it silently. Stare at them. Quiet down. Don't wear all that extra riot gear. If you want to wear your mask, wear your mask. That's totally understandable. But show them that you can be disciplined. Not punishing, disciplined. You're not some unruly mob. You're not some freak out. And I say both sides do this. You know, you have those guards out there at the ICE facilities, just stand there and be quiet. Observe them. You know why? Because that means, you know, that is true power. Because neither side is doing anything wrong at that point. You might be, you know, complaining about how the deportations are done or anything like that. Those ICE officers can do nothing about it. They're doing their job. Oh, well, they can just quit. Yes, they could, and be blacklisted from any law enforcement agency they would ever possibly go to. Oh, well, they could transfer out. Again, be blacklisted. You really think that that's not going to happen? Security companies wouldn't hire you then. You're blacklisted. You're literally starting your career from day one. You know, and some of those guys, what, 30, 40? You know, they put their whole lives into this. So what you really need to do is protest the people that are signing the bills for this stuff. You know, you got the time and effort to sit around, you know, whatever city you're in and protest silently or protest. Why don't you do it where they actually make the laws? Go to your governor's mansion if you can't afford to go to Pennsylvania Avenue. Go to the places where these things are actually being done. Where that's all you can do. You know, I mean, you don't protest Amazon by standing outside and, you know, screaming and yelling at your Amazon driver. Right? That's never going to get anything done. All you're going to do is just have more, you know, more problems for the poor Amazon driver that's just doing a job. You know, I mean, I don't understand this. You know, it's like, it's again, you know, how do you protest against EA being bought by Saudi Arabia with, you know, all their human rights violations? No, exactly. No, I understand what you're saying, but that's not how it works. What would have happened if those administrators had actually talked against what was happening in Germany? You know, a lot of people will sit there and say that, but they don't realize that what happened to those people that actually spoke up and actually tried to protest in Germany. They ended up being right in the camps with the other people. If they even made it that far. Some of them were just outright shot. They feared for their lives. It's easy to sit there and say, you know, critique somebody for just doing their job. But nine tells you work for Kroger. Have you ever looked into their history? And how many human rights violations they do? I mean, they used to lead in spices. Have you ever looked into the spice industry? How much fraud, corruption, and everything happens in that? Are you going to quit your job just because, you know, you want to protest that? I mean, you're just doing a job. I mean, I know it's unfair comparison, but it's real easy to critique somebody. But I guarantee you that if a certain time period in Germany, if the mass amount of populations actually surrounded the government buildings in just silent protest, I think they might have been a little bit more hesitant, because it's what's known as a show of force. I'm not saying that it isn't right, but it is the world we live in. It is so hard to do the right thing because 9 times out of 10, everything you do is wrong. I mean, here I am, you know, streaming on Twitch. Amazon puts a lot of money towards Israel, and I happen to disagree with a lot of what's going on in Israel. Not with Jews in general, but with the Israeli government. I have my critiques there. But also, I'm smart enough to know that I don't know it all. Neither could they. Neither could they at that time period in Germany. Remember, by that time, everybody in Germany was considered, you know, a foreign warrior. You know, it's really hard to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. But they were just trying to keep, make ends meet and make their family survive because they couldn't escape anywhere else. I mean, remember, the German Deutschmark at that time was valueless. People were carrying wheelbarrows of money to the store just to buy bread. I think it was like a million marks for a loaf of bread. Exactly. And that's what I'm saying is that by the time you understood what was going on as an average person, it was too late. Especially at that time, they didn't have the media that we have today. All of their media was controlled by the government. And I guarantee you, our government has a hand in our media. I mean, and other governments, because Netanyahu was talking about how he had his own influencers. They pay people to put out propaganda. And I know they're not the only one. He's just the only one that's actually admitted it. So, I mean, these are the times we live in. It is so hard to actually get a straight story, to believe in anything. I mean, you look at the news, you look at people, even YouTubers and what they're talking about. How do you trust them? What are their sources? I mean, we've been lied to for generations. MK Ultra never stopped. They just changed how they do it. I guarantee you, Facebook, well, actually, I should say the DARPA project that they were working on was an extension of MK Ultra, because they realized they can't control the individual, but if you can control the masses, it's a lot easier to get people to follow. So propaganda was a lot more important than controlling an individual, controlling the thoughts and minds of people. I mean, think about it. How many times have you heard somebody in politics say hearts and minds? We are constantly being manipulated. The only way to not be manipulated is to step away, is to look at both sides. Quit making it about, me. Take your ego out of it and start looking at what are they really saying? Like, what's the end game here? Because both the right and the left in politics right now, they're playing the same game. They're on the same side. They've been flip-flopping back and forth since the beginning. The names may change, but the faces stay the same. Or I should say at this point, the politics stays the same. This is all engineered against us. This is all engineered for control. For the good or ill. I mean, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but that's how it is. We learned a lot of lessons in the 1940s. We learned how easy it is to push a people to the point of being able to get them to do anything we want them to. We can radicalize an individual in months. We can make them flip-flop on their politics if we just, engineer an algorithm against them. Do you not think that the NSA, CIA, other government agencies from foreign governments don't have this ability? I mean, we know that there was such a thing as dark posts back in 2015, 2016, where a person was given a tailored political ad for or against Trump. I can't remember exactly who was doing it, but it was all through Facebook. Now we have all of this quick media, shorts, TikTok, Reels. I mean, you just swipe. I mean, how many times have you run across the same video? I mean, we know billions and billions of hours are being generated, per month? And now with AI being able to just throw out slop, which is pretty damn good, and it's hard to tell if it's real or not. How fast can you be radicalized? How quickly can you turn against everything that you thought you knew because suddenly, everybody's against you? How quickly can that shoe be put on the other foot? Or how quickly, since you already believe one way, do they just push you further, further, further until you're incited to do some extreme act? I mean, that's really how an algorithm works. You feed it. It's a self-feeding thing. It learns to know what you like, and so it feeds you what you like. But once you start trusting that algorithm to give you what you like, it's real easy to flip a few switches and to slowly lead you, well, I'm not even slowly anymore, but to lead you down a path that you wouldn't have otherwise taken. Again, for good or ill. It's easy to push people, especially in today's day and age, because we're so unsure of everything. That's why I keep saying short form media is such a danger. Short form media should never be used because it literally bypasses your cognitive thought. You don't think about what you're watching on a short form media. You're just consuming it. You're not thinking about it. It gives you no time to before you're on to the next thing. You are being overloaded so fast, so much that it's literally just so destructive. It's one of the reasons why we are in such a state today. Why we're in such dire straits. We have so much brain rot. We have so much media that we can consume on a regular basis, so much being fed to us. And it is so easy. I mean, how many times have you screwed up your algorithm because you looked at one thing on YouTube, or at least I have. He's like, oh, that kind of looks interesting. Well, wasn't interested in that. And then you start getting fed other things because you clicked on one thing. I mean, I spent weeks, don't recommend that, don't recommend that, don't recommend that, before I got it back to where I wanted it. And now it's going out of whack again, and I got to start going through again because I'm not getting the notifications I want for what I really want to watch. Even Twitch, half the time it doesn't send out notifications that I'm live. I don't know how many of you are subscribed to either of my YouTube channels right now, but how often does it give you the notifications? October 1st, I put out a new video, 10 videos, 13 videos. October 1st on Neon Bard. Every day. Okay. And I don't know how many people actually received it. It's slowly building steam again. Like it's starting to get picked up, and that's fine. I'm not complaining. This isn't a complaint. I'm saying I know the YouTube algorithm gets screwed up so easily. I have to check and make sure that I'm still subscribed to the things I want to be subscribed to. I have to pay attention to what I'm doing. And because I have the convictions I do, I also pay attention to who sponsors the YouTubers I watch. And there's a lot of things that really bug me. Like, I have a hard time with YouTubers who, like, with BetterHelp. Like, that's a garbage sponsorship. I don't care how much money they're giving you. I would rather see a Raid Shadow Legends, a mobile game, than BetterHelp. Because at least a mobile game, all it's doing is taking your money. BetterHelp, with everything I was able to research, it's not even giving you proper therapy. It's not giving you proper advice. It's making you think it is. Half of them are AI. Your therapist is AI. And well, we've seen what happens in, when AI gets taken too seriously. I mean, there are people that are getting convinced that their AI is in love with them. They're getting convinced that the AI is telling them the truth of the world. Hey, that would be awesome. I mean, I know that people used to shit on, mobile ads, but I mean, fume. Oh yeah, let's get rid of your vape and give you essential oils to throw in your lungs. Never mind that the essential oils industry is completely unregulated, and yeah, I'd rather have a cigarette because at least I know what's in there and I know what to expect out of it. Same with vaping, it's pretty much unregulated. They've done a lot better now. But I mean, I remember that was a big deal right before COVID. People's lungs giving up. Which one? I mean, because there was the fembots from, or the sex bots from Austin Powers. There was the original West world that had the sex bots. Yeah, I mean, that's a common trope. But I mean, now that's becoming more of a reality. Speaking of that, they're getting closer and closer to bridging that uncanny valley. Because, I mean, anytime you look up robotics now, they've got the real life latex skin. They've got, some really good stuff. It's looking realistic. I mean, it's still uncanny valley territory, but not as far as it was. And that's the thing is that we have to realize that all of this media is literally rotting our brains. It's stopping us from acting. It's entertaining us so that we don't get enraged, so that we don't actually feel like we need to do something. We can poke fun at it. Oh, I made a tweet about it. Oh, I made a TikTok about it. Oh, I screamed into the void. Yeah, it makes you feel better at the time. But are you really doing anything? I do everything I can. There are certain companies I will never buy from until they've changed their ways. It's why I don't support Disney. I will not touch anything Disney that I know is Disney anyway. I'm sure that there are things that I have messed with that are Disney. But, what can you do? I mean, there's only so much you can do. I do my best to work within the constraints of my own conscience. And that's all we can ask of anybody. I can't tell you how to live your life. I mean, that's pure and simple. Nobody should be able to tell you how to live your life. And I mean, really, I mean, what are you supposed to do? Because you still got to eat, you still got to live. I remember back in the early 2000s, late 90s, somewhere in that neighborhood, when everybody was hating on Walmart, forgetting that, yeah, sure, they were putting mom and pa's out of joint or out of work, but they were employing, 10 times the number of people that those mom and pa joints could do, even all collected. I mean, my local Walmart, back where I lived in Centralia, I think employed, 800 to 1,000 people. All the mom and pa grocery stores that put out of business were like 2, which may have had 200 people because their competitors were still around. We still had 2 good other competitors in town that I shopped at too, depending on what I was looking for. And they were locally owned. And I think a lot of people forget that you can do that. Well, if you're thinking about weird science, that wasn't a female robot. That was something else entirely. But that was about two teens, making something, and that was a great movie, by the way. But I mean, well, let's be honest. VR wouldn't be where it is today if it wasn't for the porn industry. People forget that a lot of these real lifelike textures feel to this new skin that they use, or whatever they call it, comes from toys. That's how they figure out the real feel stuff. I know that's got to sound weird, but I mean, if you're going to be working with something intimately, like on your face, using it on your body or something like that, I guarantee you the porn industry had it first. If it's something about self-protection, information, if it can be weaponized, then the military had it first. So when it comes down to these robots, both industries have it. I mean, I'm surprised that more, we haven't heard more from OnlyFans, from the porn industry. Oh, wait, most of your, AIs literally made it forbidden to produce any kind of porn. Even, I mean, other than racy talking. Because if they started taking, money out of the porn industry's hands, a lot of people would be screaming and crying. Because the porn industry has a lot of money behind it. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying it does. Blade Runner is a good movie. It's slow by today's standards. I also preferred the short story. To be honest, I thought that was, and I know the book's always better, blah, blah, blah. I know people say that, but that's because there's so much more you can do with a book. Hell, I think most movies should just transition into animation anyway, of some kind or another. Because animation, you can do so much more with it. I mean, hell, you might as well have just done an animated, Avengers movie, because more than half of it was animated. And I think that's what's scaring Hollywood right now, is that most of the ideas they come up with, it's really hard to do it outside of animation. I don't know. I mean, and I know I really want to talk about like happier subjects and stuff, but you start talking about video games, what happens? You start talking about politics. Like I said, with the EA thing, it's like, oh, some stupid, company like EA was bought up by Saudi Arabia, which I have big issues with. Which means, I mean, I'll continue my boycott of EA. I'll keep not buying their products as I have for the past 15 years. I tried their SimCity and it was okay, but it pissed me off. And so I wasn't able to really get into it and play the game I wanted to. Let's see. I can't think of any other game that I played that was EA. Oh, no, Command and Conquer. I really love the Command and Conquer series, but I really liked it back in the Westwood days. EA did okay for a while, and then they came out with 3, and I was done. So I mean, that's what I'm saying, is it's really hard to talk about. You start talking about Hollywood, and then you got to start talking about politics again. How can you sit here and talk? I mean, the newest Superman. Everybody was talking about the politics involved and not how good the story was or not. Was it a bad story or was it a good story? Oh, it was trying to preach to me. It was trying to do this. Like, what? It was a story trying to be internally consistent. That's really all it was. And that's the thing is that everything's gotten to be such garbage. Green jeans? Satellites are corrupted by capitalism. Space is corrupted by capitalism already. Yes, I know. I'm just saying it's no longer valid. I mean, as soon as they privatized the space race, we had the second space race among the billionaires. Well, that ruined that. I don't know, I mean, life gets so weird sometimes, especially, today, how difficult it is to try and be entertaining. You have to be so careful. You have to be so mindful of what you say that you can't really say anything. And I think that's intentional. I think that's the whole point behind, PC conversations, all this censorship we have, all the cancel culture, because they want people afraid to speak up against the party, whichever party you belong to. You can't speak bad about the party, or the party, cancels you, censors you. You won't be heard. You won't be seen. And everybody's talking about how Trump did it, which I agree, but also so did Biden during the COVID. I mean, that's been proven. I mean, that's literally proven that both parties have censored people and are still censoring people. So again, this isn't a right wing, left wing thing. It's an us versus them, and us being the plebeians, the people down below. As George Carlin said, it's a big party, but you're not in it and you're not invited. I mean, and that's the problem is that especially when money wins elections, we can't keep going like this. Every time something happens, whether it's an invasion, a political assassination, we always look for which party to blame. We don't look for the person to blame. We want to blame it on somebody else rather than just some radical idiot, who thought that they could be the law, that they could be judge, jury, and executioner. Violence is what they want. Violence is what the elites want so they can keep us controlled, so they can push us in a direction they want us to be in. That's it. That's really all it is. Corporations control the world. And if you think any differently, you're not paying attention that the world moves on finance, not on wars. Wars are started because finances are running differently than what they want them to. It's about money. And money is the most arbitrary thing in the world. You either have it or you don't. And when we talk about money, I mean, it's not like, oh, I'm a millionaire now and I can do change. Like, nah, you got nothing compared to some of these people. And just because you have money doesn't mean you have power. And power is important. Fame is important, but also knowing the right people is the best of importance. I think this is the first time in American history where we absolutely need to have a third party. We absolutely need to find a different way to do things. We can't let this go on. We are so incensed by every little thing that the other side does that we can't see that they're not really doing anything. You know, and I know people are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. But the truth of it is that we're not to blame. You know, the regular people, left or right, we're not to blame. It's just like with recycling. What we can do versus what these companies do is night and day. And I know that pointing out people's insignificance in whatever they do isn't what people want to hear. But the only way to create some kind of significance is to start a third party. Start a third political party that actually plans on doing something, that actually plans on compromise, not compromat. You know, that actually wants to work together, that actually wants to try and make things better. You know, capitalism isn't bad. You know, that actually has been proven. Capitalism is probably a pretty good system. Now, that being said, what we have now is not capitalism. I don't think we have a proper word for it because it's not the market deciding. We decide, you know, the corporations are deciding the markets. They show you what you can buy. I don't think we can lean on any of those. I think we actually have to make up something different because they've all been compromised by something else. You know, and that's the problem is Libertarian Party used to have a shot and then it was compromised. Then it was a bunch of these radical anarchists, and that's not libertarianism. Green Party was, you know, all about just trying to do things the right way. If I remember correctly, it's been a long time since I even thought about the Green Party. But again, they were compromised because anybody that starts pushing these political agendas, it suddenly wears thin. People don't want to hear it. So they have to bow down to money, you know, to get their voice heard out there, which means they have to compromise themselves. You know, that is the bigger issue is that it's not capitalism that kills us. It's the need for this money to do things the right way, to get things done the way we want them to be done. You know, I think that, honestly, I don't think the party you should be able to donate to the individual political parties. Flat out. I think we need to have a secretary of electors or of elections or whatever. And what happens is that when you donate to, you know, the voting parties, you donate to that. That way everybody gets equal amount of money coming back out. That way people can hear what everybody has to say. Whether it's libertarian, whether it's Green Party, whether it's, you know, your Uncle Bill's, you know, radical white, whatever. We can hear what they have to say. Not because I think these are, you know, great parties to listen to, but that way everybody gets it equally. That way we actually know what choices we have. You know, and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand is that there's a lot more choices out there than we even know. And then you would probably have some of these, you know, people that call themselves Democrat, people that call themselves Republican, start calling themselves something else because they don't need the money of the party anymore. You know, I mean, Shoot, Elon Musk's, American party. What does that have to do with anything? Let's find out. Let's hear what it's all actually about. That would make sense. Not because I think it's a smart way, but I think everybody needs to have a shot at hearing what is being said. Everybody needs to have a shot at actually being able to choose for somebody they want, not for somebody that, the only person they hear, or that, we say that has the enough voter base to hear from. Well, that's bullshit. Most of these people that we get a vote for aren't even the lesser of two evils anymore. If you really look at it, they're basically saying the same thing on both sides when they have something to say. I will say that there have been political people that really don't have much to say at all. They're not really saying anything. And I don't know how to say it other than that, is that I think people don't understand what they really want out of politics, really want out of the world they live in. What do they want? Who do they want to be? And that's fine. We don't know what we want. There's several different ideas I have rolling around in my head that could probably do better than what we have now. Hello there. No, that's fine. Glad you're in. But, politics is such a sticky problem, because we all have ideas on how to save everything, how to do it right. Or in some cases, who we need to restrict and who we need to, no. I think the American people need to, have the right to hear everything, not because of somebody's amount of money, but because it's just right. They have enough people behind them to get up there on the stand and talk. That's how elections should go. And if people realize that it's not a bad idea to vote for a third party, because one, that's what you always hear. Oh, voting for a third party is just throwing your vote away. No, it's not. You're voting with your heart. You're telling people what you think. Hell, if you understood how our elections worked, voting at all throws your vote away. It doesn't really matter. It really doesn't. That's what electors are for. They're under no obligation to even vote the same way the states do. And that's the thing that I think people really don't understand. Even your smaller elections are. Yeah, exactly. Let everybody have a say. I think everybody that donates to, politics, it needs to go in one kitty and spread evenly. Everybody gets the same amount of money to run their votes, to run their elections. And yes, this opens up for corruption. I get it. This opens up for other things. I get it. But it'd be a lot harder. I know it's not going to solve everything, but at least it's a more honest way of doing things. I'm just so tired of watching everything burn. We really only have one party. Well, and that's what they want you to think is that, we're really only, a modification of laws away from a dictatorship. And they really want you to think that, okay, so here's my conspiracy theory. So take this for what it's worth. If you pay attention to elections, you always know who's going to win and who's going to lose. The big surprise to me was Trump's first election in 2016. I honestly thought Hillary was the one that was going to win. Not because I thought she was great. I didn't think either one of them was worth voting for. But I really thought that she was the one that was going to win, because 9 times out of 10, you can tell. You know who's going to win. I mean, Al Gore versus Bush, that was obvious. Al Gore didn't have the charisma. They put him up there just for show. You know, and that's my feelings on Kamala Harris. They put her up there just for show. They didn't have any faith in her to win. That's why they didn't hold primaries. That's why they didn't do, you know, the normal way. They did it just to squeeze her in as a party, you know, as the politician that was going to try and win, because they knew that she wasn't going to win. Both times that a woman's been put up, she's lost. And I think that's intentional. They're making it look bad. You know, they're making it look the way it is. You know, and I think that both parties collude together. That's why we don't have a third party system, or a 4 or 5 or 20 or, you know, 50, because it's too easy to control with a 2-party system, because all they have to do is just slightly different. But if you really pay attention, they're really not that different. Neither party is that different. They want you to believe they're that different, but they're really not. It's just the different industries they support, but they're still run by companies. You know, and I mean, that's just the way it is. And I think we need to change that. I think that's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous that it is so obvious that they're so similar, that they actually argue over very minor issues, that they blow up to be these big, big issues. Like, really, if they wanted us to stop fighting over gun control, like, we'll just go with the Second Amendment. It's an often hot button topic, and it's very, you know, right versus left. It's real easy. The simple compromise is that we license guns like we license cars. That's it. Somebody has to get checked out on the range, go through all their things. Boom, done. You have a gun owner's license. That's it. That's all you have to do. Because they have to be rechecked out every once in a while. They have to pass, you know, say a psychological, which I think is necessary. They would have to, you know, that's a simple solution. I believe in the Second Amendment, and that is a modification I could handle. I'm okay with that. You know, and it's not going to solve it. It's not going to solve the problem, but neither is taking away all the guns. Because, I mean, really, you know, it's like, oh, you know, guns are illegal. So what? The criminals are going to turn in their guns? The people that were going to, you know, all you're going to do is get the people that were never going to use their guns for any kind of insidious purpose to give up their guns. You know, it's just like, you know, what are locks for? Well, to keep honest people out. Because an honest person is not going to pick your lock. You could have the weakest tissue paper lock, but an honest person is going to see, oh, it's locked, move on. Simple as that. But a criminal is going to look at that and go, easy pickings. You know, and that's what people don't really get. They don't really understand that criminals are a universal thing. People are criminals, but you can actually make things to where you reduce the number of criminals. You'll never have 100%. And that starts with proper education, giving people a future. Letting them know they have a future. Suddenly, people are going to be a lot less likely to be criminals because they know they have a future to throw away. Does that make sense? At least that's how I see it. You know, I mean, and I could be wrong, but that's how I see it. Is just the fact that Oh, and that's what I mean is there's always going to be criminals. There's always going to be somebody that's going to throw it away. And that's fine. You know, they're going to throw it away. But if you give the majority of people an idea about a future and that they have something to throw away, they won't. You know, and it can't be false hope. It can't be something, you know, that they just never would get. It has to be real. At least that's how I see it, is that it has to be real. Can you guys hear me okay? I mean, like, do I seem off or anything? Okay. Sorry, one of my audio meters isn't moving and I don't know why. I mean, you guys have been responding like everything's fine, so I don't know what's going on. Oh, no, you're fine. You are fine. No, I just noticed that and it distracted me. No, it's just the fact that we live in a world where it's really hard to hope. It's really hard to see where the future is. You know, what we can do to make things good for ourselves. I mean, nobody wants, you know, really wants to be a millionaire. You know, you don't want to have all the money and power and prestige. Well, yes, but it's hard. It's hard to hope, especially right now. We're going through some very tough times. I will admit that. We are going through some very tough times. I mean, I've lived through, let's see, the Challenger disaster, the fall of the Berlin Wall, the breakup of the USSR, 9/11. Yeah, exactly. We just want to be comfortable. That's it. That's all we want. Most people wouldn't even know what to do with a bunch of. Yeah, unless we can figure out a way how to fix it. But the first thing is to get everybody to stop for a second and look that they're all not that different. That they're literally arguing over just tiny little problems. That because it's the only thing to argue about, they exploded into these big problems. They make them so much bigger than they really are. And it's ridiculous. We explode all of these issues to make it look so much worse than it really is. When all we really need to worry about is food, bed, job, and then entertainment. Just a little bit. I mean, we don't even need a whole lot. I mean, if YouTube and Twitch has taught anybody anything, is that people don't need a whole lot of cost in their entertainment. They need just enough. They need just, you know, something that's familiar, you know, that's comfortable, familiar, and they can just keep going. You know, that's the thing is that that's all we really need. You know, and I watched, and the problem is that I feel bad for the next generation too. But mostly that's because my parents' generation won't let go of power. They are so afraid to take their hand off the wheel and let somebody else do it. Well, exactly. You don't have to agree with everything. I mean, I don't expect everybody to agree with everything I say. That's never been an expectation of mine. I don't care what people, you know, I just want to have my say. And I love, you know, talking with people about it. That's what matters to me. And it really bothers me that we have such an issue with people not paying attention, not understanding what's really going on, not getting that all they're doing is screwing everybody over, the next generation. You know, these people that are so worried about the world, they can't be bothered to let somebody else actually take a swing at it, because for shame if they get it right. You know, that's the thing is that they might actually get it right. And then what's going to happen? You know, somebody might actually fix it and then they'd look like the bad guys. Oh, they can't have that. You know, and that's where things go wrong. Is that we have this need to be in control. We have this need, and oh yeah, as long as, you know, as long as I've got my bag, who cares what anybody else has? Never realizing that, you know, that's exactly how they ended up in the situation to have to, you know, pull all these Herculean measures just to figure out what's going on, just to get what they want out of life. They have to take it from someone else. You know, that's how they feel, and that's what they do. Is that it looks like, whatever they do is just so difficult for other people to understand. Like they just have this whole complex, like, no, I have this plan and you'll never understand it. Like, no, I think everybody gets it. We totally understand. We totally understand what's going on, and you don't understand that it's not that hard, bruh. It's not that hard. We just want people to be taken care of. I want to treat people like people. I don't care what they are, who they are, color, nothing. I just want people to be people. It's not that hard. You know, I mean, I don't care what you want. I don't care what, as long as it's not hurting other people, who cares? Nobody should care. Nobody should worry about what the next guy is doing unless, you know, it's on their land, unless it's infringing on something they're doing. And then you got to work it out. You know, that's the big thing, is just learning to work it out. Working together, being a part of the whole. You know, and that's, I think, what a lot of people forget, is that we're all parts of the whole. We're all just fractions. And we need to learn that if I screw up my fraction, it screws it up for the next guy, and the next guy, and the next guy, to where nobody has anything proper. You know, that's really what it comes down to, is how difficult it is to keep yourself contained so you're not bothering others while still being able to be who you are. It's insanely difficult, except for when it's not and you're just not thinking about it. Because I have a rule. If you don't like it, don't do it to other people. That's it. It's the simplest thing. If you don't like it, don't do it to other people. So, I mean, if you don't like not having money, why are you taking money from somebody else? If you don't like not having security, why are you taking it from somebody else? If you don't like somebody recognizing who you are, why are you taking that from somebody else? Pure and simple. I don't even have to understand it. I don't even have to agree with what they're doing, with what's going on. That's fine. All I need to do is understand who I am. and what I need to do with life and my life. And make sure that that doesn't go anywhere. Make sure that people can be who and what they want to be without me interfering on what they're doing. You know, just as the same respect I hope they do for me. You know, I don't know what else to say about that. I don't know how else to make that work. You know, I don't understand. I don't know. I don't understand. I don't understand people and why they have to care so much about what somebody else is doing to the point of stopping them from doing it. But I also know that there's hope. Watching what's going on, watching how people are reacting to it, there is hope. I think there's a lot more people that aren't as, for lack of a better term, radicalized as we think. I think there's a lot more people that are in the middle, like the average person. They don't care about any of the hot button issues, really. What they want is jobs. A secure job, not being employed by some jerk that, you know, they have to cow down to because there's no other jobs. They want some security. I mean, in fact, most people just want a little bit of money, be able to take care of themselves and those they care about if they need to. You know, this insecure way we live our life right now, we're going to get burned out. And I don't think they're ready for that. I don't think they realize what's going to happen when people get burned out. We're already starting to see it. You know, these radical shootings, whether it was the Minnesota congresswoman or what happened to Charlie Kirk or the dude that drove his truck into that church. You know, the problem is that people don't understand that that's just the beginning of people being burned out. People are stopping caring about the consequences. Hell, there's a lot of people out there that don't even understand that consequences are a real thing. I mean, let alone seeing some of these people get away with the stuff. Ghislaine Maxwell, Diddy, you know, what's the consequences of their actions? You know, I mean, this is getting ridiculous. It's like we're not even paying attention, or at least they don't think we are. You know, when we keep seeing the moneyed class, the powerful, get away with stuff, that is where you start having violent revolutions, and we need to stop before that happens. We need to stop before we lose our minds, before it doesn't matter anymore. And I think a lot of people don't understand that a internal war, civil war, whatever you want to call it, nobody wins. Nobody. You'll never win that one. Sure, one side will end up, you know, on top, but nobody won. And the real problem is that, I mean, I don't think people really understand how it wouldn't be like the Civil War we had before, where it was North versus South. You know, the battle lines were pretty easy. You're going to have states carving out, you know, their little pockets everywhere. And that's going to make it 10 times worse than it ever was in the Civil War. There's not going to be a direct line. The closest we might have is East versus West, except for there's a lot of Western states, you know, Idaho, Montana, that are very red. And there's a lot of them that are very blue, you know, Washington, Oregon, California, you know, and there's a lot of states that are split. And yes, we have modern weapons. And we have a lot of ingenuity. Yes, And that's going to lead to, quite frankly, the population will be massively reduced. The population of the United States would be massively reduced. It would open the door for some of these more violent countries, or I don't even want to call them violent, but these other countries to come in and interfere like we have done so many times with other civil wars, with other countries' civil wars. Yes, exactly. I mean, and then you're going to have these people interfering in our civil war, like America's done, and like I said, so many others, because, they're justified, oh, you guys did it, here, so it's okay if we do it here. And that's just going to ratchet up the problems. Now, I am a big supporter of, Ukraine. I think Ukraine needed help in its defense. I really think we dropped the ball. We should have put boots on the ground there. We should have done more than just material support. We should have actually helped out, because they're our ally. That was a defensive war. We should have done something about that. That's my feelings on it. That was we threatened Russia. We, if you do this, you got sanctions. Really? You sent me a sternly worded letter. Said, I bet, you did a bad thing. Like, that's what? Yeah, exactly. They were passive. Like, that was stupid. We should have had boots on the ground. Well, they're already trying to find the line. We've already had Chinese spy balloons. Yeah. Right. I'm just saying that we had advocated for them. We had warned Russia, and all we did was gave them a bunch of stuff that we weren't using anyway. Like, just from our old stockpiles that we wouldn't have really used in a war. And that irritates me, is that we should have been there. We should have gone in there. We should have done a lot more. And this war would have been over. I mean, with especially how much of a paper tiger Russia proved to be. See, they invested so much more into their internet warfare. They're absolutely weak. Yeah. Yeah, we were giving Ukraine our hand-me-downs, and then we're beating the crap out of the Russians. Russia had to bring out, 1960s model tanks, and they were still getting toasted. This just proves that Russia invested so much more into internet warfare than they have been into their physical warfare. Internet warfare doesn't do any good if you can't protect where you're fighting from. And they just proved that they don't have the ability to fight. Like, I don't think a lot of countries realize how easy it would be to invade Russia right now. Like, if you really wanted to slap down Russia, that's what you'd do. You'd invade, tell them to knock it off, put everything back the way it's supposed to be, maybe hold Putin up on war crimes. I don't know. Because technically that's what we should have done when he came to Alaska. Right. But drone warfare, I mean, if Russia actually had invested heavily in drone warfare, Ukraine would have lost a long time ago. But they literally don't even have any counter drone methods that are really working. If they did, I mean, what, Ukraine's flown one all the way to Moscow? If I remember correctly, seeing the news right? Like, that's ridiculous. And I'm just some armchair, strategist. But I'm looking at what Russia is putting up in a defense and trying to invade, Ukraine with, and this is all they can do? Really? Well, yeah, but jammers are super easy. One, all you have to do is pre-program the mission. You don't have to have external, radio calls for your drone. If you pre-program it to do what it's going to do and you send out 5, 10, 15 of them, one's getting through at least. Right. Gee, that's how the escalation of force works, is that people are always going to find a way around. That's why you need to calm down and you need to actually talk it out. One, there is nothing Ukraine has that Russia needs. There isn't. Russia is so much bigger than that. The only reason why they need more from Ukraine is they need an enemy to fight, because their internals, because their people are getting pissed. I don't think a lot of people remember that Putin was getting protests against him. Putin was getting all of this stuff against him. But now that he's at war, he can rule with an iron fist again. And I think that's why his military, is so weak, is because the people just don't want to be part of it. They thought they were picking on a smaller country. That was the problem. Russia thought they were picking on a smaller country. Yes, I got it. Hello there. They thought they were picking on a smaller country and they failed. Imagine if they tried to do that against, America. I mean, I don't think people really understand that how big America's military budget really is. How much we have. I mean, I don't know of another country that has, I think we have 3 naval, I don't even know what they're called anymore, but divisions. We have the Pacific Fleet, or 3 fleets. Right. But we have 3 fleets just in our Navy. We have the Pacific Fleet, the Atlantic Fleet, and if I remember right, we have the Indian Ocean Fleet. It could only be 2. It could be just the Pacific and Atlantic, but I think we also have one in the Indian Ocean. We have the largest Air Force. Like, it doesn't matter if they, China has, like this brand new, like they keep trying to tell us, how good this new jet fighter is. They can only build like 12 of them. That's probably an exaggeration, but I know that we have several hundred planes of our new, the F-35. We have all of this stuff that they can't touch. They can't stop. There's nothing they can do. They might be able to put up a small resistance, but I think we have technically more military at our disposal than pretty much every other country, and in most of them. Yeah. Well, even better is that what a lot of people don't understand is that America doesn't have to bomb the crap out of them. Whether it's Russia, China, it doesn't matter. Whatever enemy. I'm not trying to advocate for any war. What I'm saying is that we wouldn't even have to. We would just do targeted strikes. You take out the heads. Boom, done. All gone. As was proven, you don't, okay, you have a big bunker. Okay, we just drop a few bunker busters on you. We finally got that proven, that hardened military, bunker. Okay, we dropped 2 instead of 1. You're going to be over here, doing this. Moab. A mass fuel air bomb. Mass ordnance fuel air bomb. Or air fuel bomb. Which basically does nuclear level attack, like low level nuclear level attack, but actually doesn't leave any nuclear residue. They're a terrible bomb. And, other countries have it, but they don't have as many as we do. And again, that's the point is that, we can, if all else fails, we just weaponize our satellites against them. Exactly. Well, we did the same thing in Syria not too long ago. And that's what I'm saying is that I don't think And I'm not even just trying to say, American, superiority. I more think about this as being American, idiocracy. We don't need that much military. We're not going to fight the whole world at once. But yet we have enough weapons and military budget to do so. And it's ridiculous to think about. It's ridiculous to think that the whole world basically is what it would take if we decided to go all out. If I understand the statistics and all the information properly, the only dark horse really in this race is China, because as far as I know, we don't have accurate numbers. We don't really know because they guard themselves so well. But I mean, the internet warfare is really where we're outstripped. And I think that's what we don't understand. Right. Human wave tactics don't work. But we have now internet warfare where I think we're actually lagging behind. We're not using these tools properly because we're using them against ourselves. We're trying to keep the American people controlled so much that it's so easy to disrupt the propaganda with foreign actors, whether that's through China's TikTok, whether that's through Russian misinformation. You see it if you know what to look for. The odd news story that just doesn't it makes sense, but something's off about it. And you realize, oh, that's probably Russian misinformation. Or somebody acting misinformation. I mean, North Korea, not South Korea, North Korea has stolen more in cryptocurrency than we even want to admit. Their internet warfare is so much superior to what we think. They have stolen so much money. I think one of their strikes was $600 million in one go. I think that was the Axie Infinity from a few years ago. And that's, I think, what a lot of people are afraid of is the internet warfare. Because they're stupid. I'm just going to put that out there. Because they're stupid. Crypto is absolutely useless. Well, real money is cheaper to produce and maintain than crypto is. But you're not wrong. Crypto takes a bunch of money to manage, to make it work. That's the first thing. It's never going to be a real investment. It looks good on paper, but it costs more than it's worth at this point to maintain it, especially if people started mass adopting it. Let alone how easy it is to mess it all up, to muck it all up, to make it absolutely useless. And that's the scary part. Cryptocurrency is probably, I looked into it when it was first becoming popular, way back when, I think 2008, 2009, 2010, somewhere in that neighborhood. When it first came into prominence. And I realized, that its value is literally based on nothing real. It's the speed at which a program can solve a problem. And now it's based on what people think it's worth. It's dumb as Brock. Yeah, exactly. At least American money has, the GDP. Most other countries use their gross domestic product to base their money on. Cryptocurrency doesn't even have that. Right? Well, the gross domestic product is one of the best valuations that we have. because it's complex, but it works. But cryptocurrency literally has nothing for it. Now, if we digitized our dollar, it might actually be worthwhile, because then you can take out the amount of money and everything that it's taking to maintain the mints and all of that and the redistribution. And you just put the dollar bill on the blockchain. And a lot of people are absolutely terrified. Oh, the government could, seize your assets. They already can do that. You think they're not going to put something in place, laws in place that say that, they have to still have the laws to do this? The same laws that they use now? Like, of course they will. And if they don't, that'd be dumb, because that means that people can weaponize it against them too. Because hackers would be able to weaponize, you start doing that for no reason and with no law, hackers would have a field day and start emptying out, America's coffers. But I think they're too afraid of putting, digitizing the American currency because of the blockchain. Because then, the blockchain can be tracked. It's not anonymous like people want it to be. And so if the blockchain can be tracked, that means you could, campaign donations. Where are politicians getting their monies? How are companies spending their monies? Where are CEOs getting their money from? It literally takes all the blinders off of money. And they're absolutely terrified of that level of transparency. And that's why it'll never happen. That's why it's been looked at by a couple of presidents so far of digitizing the dollar, and they have literally shied away from it and said no, because they're terrified of the transparency. We'd actually get to know where our tax dollars went. We'd actually know everything. Because these would all have to be part of the public ledger, because they're on, public funds. Well, see, the problem with Roblox is that its issues are baked in. They have a problem and they don't know how to fix it. I just did. And that's an issue, is that they have a big problem with certain people being on a platform that's meant for kids. They're trying to say, oh, it wasn't meant for kids, except for everything was developed for kids. There, I did it. I think I did enough for both of you. So there you go. I hydrated. But Roblox is fine. It's a social media thing, video game. But I actually think that Roblox getting sued is necessary, because they need to enforce their own rules. And they're not. They're doing the same thing, the same problem that Twitch has right now. They're not enforcing their own rules. And that's why Twitch is getting set up on. That's why, Twitch is getting, Congress looked at in a few days, or at the end of the month. I can't remember. No, it's October 8th. Yeah, it's in a few days. Right? And I don't know. It's just one of those things that I think a lot of people don't understand, that these major corporations. No, I think you were right the first way. No, I don't think the government will shut it down. Roblox makes too much money. What? They made more money than basically all of the gaming industry, of the rest of the gaming industry by themselves. You don't shut that kind of money down. You know, that's literally what you call too big to fail. So what happens is that the government might kick out all of the CEOs, all of the people that are in power, and then, force somebody else to take their place. There's a lot that the government can do without actually interfering outside of enforcing laws. And I think, the government shut down? Yeah, the government's already shut down. As far as I know, the government shut down. Yeah, the government ain't paying for anything. But that doesn't stop certain things from going through. It's just, government shutdowns are so screwball. You're still supposed to report to work. You're still supposed to do these things, but you're not getting paid for it until they start, it back up, and then you get paid for it. And me personally, I have to agree with a previous Trump statement of, if the government gets shut down under a president's watch, that makes the president look weak. He literally said that before he was elected the first time. And now it's shut down on his watch for the second time on his watch. And it's all because they can't compromise. Now, I know they keep talking about healthcare being the big sticking point. I'm pretty sure it's a lot more than that. Because here's a little secret for a lot of these people. That doesn't make any sense that you'd shut down the government over the healthcare stuff, because with the government being shut down, that means a lot of the healthcare stuff isn't getting paid for. That means a lot of these Section 8 housing, low-income housing isn't getting paid for. Oh, you ain't bugging me, man. I mean, work on it. Be better. It's not bugging me. I'm being facetious. But it is getting about that time. So I'm going to leave it on that, is that the simple fact is we need to take a page from Bill and Ted's book. And we need to remember to learn, or we need to remember and learn how to be excellent to each other. That's it. Treat each other with respect. It doesn't matter what their political views, what games they play, what car they drive. We just need to treat people with respect. You all have a wonderful night.